Here's an interesting video. I didn't put any thought into this video before saying it, but well, I never do. But this video is yeah, it's interesting how and somebody brought this up on this video. They were arguing with me. It was an atheist arguing with me on my religious statistics video. There's this religious statistics that say the people with a higher education are the most atheist. So I use that as a reason for saying that higher education brainwashes you into being an atheist. But it's interesting how, and I think that person brought it up, is how 10% of the people in the world are atheists, yet all of our our news and our politics and our higher education and science mainly is controlled by the atheist mindset. And I think the reason for that is that that it's such a divisive subject. Talking about religion, it's too provocative, and it kind of it proves that people don't know how to argue. Instead of arguing, they just get upset with each other, and then they agree to disagree, which is retarded. But it shows that there's so many people in this world who have totally differing ideas. And New Ager, that's what I am, basically believes all of it. But then you've got these people who are the fundamentalist Christians on one end, one extreme end, but there's a whole bunch of them. I can't remember the stats. I'll have to go back and look at it. If you look at my religious statistics page, maybe I'll put the link on this video. But there's a whole bunch of people in America who are fundamentalist Christians, who think like all the fundamentalist Christian stuff, that the world was 6,000 years old, Jesus resurrected, and all that kind of stuff. You're going to burn in hell and all that, eternal hellfire and all that stuff. And then on the other extreme are the atheists, who are just as crazy because they think that there's no life. No life exists. All of your life is just like chemical reactions in your brain that evolved like randomly, random mutation since the beginning of the earth, and when you die you're gone forever. And so it's those guys versus the fundamentalist Christians who think that if you bow down to the Lord and Savior Jesus because he died for our sins, that means that if you bow down to him and give your allegiance to him, kind of the way that a subject would give his allegiance to a king, then you get to enter in his kingdom when you die. And if you don't, then you burn in hell for all of eternity. Which is crazy. And that's so crazy that you can't even talk about it. And when they're both crazy like that with opposite ideas, there's no way that they can talk about it. And one reason that you can't talk about it is because their ideas are actually, at the end of the day, they're very, very simple. And it's just indicative of stupidity. For example, a fundamentalist Christian could never, and I've asked them, and they couldn't. I don't think they could, and I would challenge somebody, or maybe if somebody could show me to a video of somebody talking about it, would never describe to you what heaven is like at all, and they would never, ever, ever describe to you what hell is like, because I guess it's supposed to be common knowledge, even if you're not Christian. So I guess that leads me to guess. Hell is very, very hot, so you're in excruciating pain, heat. Your skin is boiling off of your skin, of your body, and your skin's melting, and it's like the most excruciatingly painful, like kind of like walking a marathon with blisters all over your feet. Only that's all over your body, and then so you smell the putrid smell, but it never actually melts off. You're just melting and melting and screaming and screaming. And then there's all these other people around you screaming and screaming and screaming at the top of their lungs. And farting. And there's this smell of like putrid flesh and like fart and gaseous fumes and melting and screaming, and people like biting their tongues off and bashing their heads against the wall for all of eternity, eternity, eternity. I guess that's what hell is, right? And there's like pools of like molten lava bubbling up feces that's red hot, with red hot fumes going up into the sky. And then there's the devil there standing on top of a big rock in the middle, laughing at you with his pitchfork and then poking you the whole time. I guess that's what hell is like, right? And so then heaven would be you're on top of a cloud, and you're, well, I guess Christians, they have to be like extremely, they're really like politically correct. So they're all clothed in white shirts and long pants. And they don't have sex up there, and there's no nudity up there. But they're all very happy because they're just standing around and they're talking about how they get to be there, and then all the other people are in heaven. Hell, I don't know. I probably got too in depth, but they don't even have that idea. All they know is that they are heaven, eternal, happy all the time. Hell, eternal, not happy, sad forever. And then you can't have an in-depth conversation with an atheist because their ideas are so simple. What they tell you is, show me the proof. There's no proof. And then you tell them the proof, and they're like, show me the proof. There's no proof. And then you tell them it again, and then they kind of ask you the same thing. Like they never listened to you when you told them all of the scientific experiments, and then they're like, oh, but that doesn't prove if they did hear you say the scientific experiment. And then they just give up. So maybe when they give up, that means they're not atheists anymore. And the only reason they're atheists is because they're closed-minded. But the main purpose of the video is like, how is it that the educational system and the scientific community, they're atheists. It's controlled by atheists, but only 10% of the world is atheist. Well, if you look at the statistics, those vast numbers of fundamentalist Christians are really poor and uneducated people, like who haven't even like graduated high school or went to like a community college, which basically is an education. You don't learn anything over there because the teachers don't know anything. So they don't have any say. They're not part of the higher education of universities or the science or politics, or, well, actually fundamentalist Christians are involved in politics, but in the science. It's people who are educated, actually, who are the atheists a lot of the time. But that shows right there that education is not well-rounded. It's more like training people to do very specific things. So somebody would be an astrophysicist. All they study is astrophysics. They know all of the equations and the trigonometry and the how to work the telescope and the algorithms to figure out the sizes of the quarks or whatever the hell. But that's what they study, and that's all they study. And then when they go home, they go and they watch their TV or they do whatever, and they're just normal people. So education it shows you that everything's really compartmentalized and not integrated. And so people continue to live in their separate worlds. You have the vast majorities of people who believe in God, but they believe in the fundamentalist Christian religion type. And then they go to their churches and they just, preach to the choir, so to speak. They just listen to each other. They turn on their radio stations and listen to their own radio stations. But they don't communicate with the scientist people, and the scientist people don't communicate back with them. And so basically, I think that's why. It's just people choose their groups to follow and to be part of, and then they just stay isolated in that group, and they don't interact, and then it just stays like that. But it's changing fast. The middle ground of people who believe in everything, who believe in reincarnation and God and everything, you name it, they believe it. They just have a definition for it. That's basically I think that's growing out really quickly, and it's going into the scientific community, and it's going into the religious community. I think religious people are really like the fundamentalist, crazy fundamentalist types. Like Sarah Palin, she's a crazy fundamentalist. She probably thinks that dinosaurs. Supposedly, I heard on Young Turks that she gave a speech in Alaska where she was talking about how she believed that there were dinosaurs here 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, and that she saw a human footprint inside of a dinosaur footprint. And and she told, let's see, that other dude, Glenn Beck, that we live in a fallen world. I mean, she probably thinks all that stuff that those fundamentalist Christians think, eternal hellfire, and the reason that they're involved in politics is because we live in a democracy, and if a lot of people vote, if it's a big voting constituency, then those are the people you go after, and those are the people who you vote for. So that's the reason that they're involved in politics. But there's also an interesting phenomenon, I think, that happens when you study in science. If you don't have a well-rounded philosophical idea or even scientific idea about stuff, and you study like the brain, for example, and you look at all the brain experiments, and how cutting out this brain will make you, cutting out the long-term memory of your brain will make you forget long-term, and doing electrodes to the brain that controls your left foot will make your left foot twitch, and this kind of stuff. People go, oh man, this is cool. The human is just a body, or the human body is just a mechanism. The human body is just a mechanism. Wow. And then you could figure out how you could like maybe brainwash people by giving them lobotomies and then reinstalling memories in that part of their brain, and then just kind of turn them into robots, and then they go, oh wow, yeah, the human's just a mechanism, and then they just go they snap into that extreme of, oh yeah, we're nothing. There's no soul behind that. When it can be both ways. The human body is a mechanism, but it's inhabited by a soul, and it doesn't have to mean that it's not a mechanism, or that it's not inhabited by a soul. It's just a mechanism. It can be the same. You can hijack somebody's body, and then their soul will still be in there, like swimming around, like trying to get control of it again. And if you want to get really scientific about that, just look at the pineal gland. Has anybody really defined what that is? They say it regulates melatonin, but why does it look the way it does? Why does it an eyeball that with a cornea and everything that looks straight up? You don't need that to regulate melatonin. Why is it in the center of the brain like that? It's to see your soul, to connect to your soul and your body and your brain. So the main reason is just isolation, and so basically to fix that is just communicate with each other. But I think that's the reason. That's the reason why 10% of us are atheists. Yet all their science is controlled by the atheists. It's just that there's less than 10% of the people in the world are scientists, and that's why. And higher education has to be atheistic. It has to be neutral, because it's such a touchy subject that people get upset, and then they go after people's throats and stuff. And so it's better just to not talk about it, and just to leave it alone. So then it becomes like a taboo, not just to talk about God, but to talk about any of the Eastern religions or anything like that well, I guess that's changing, but I'm kind of referring to that documentary No Intelligence Allowed, expelled No Intelligence Allowed, by Ben Stein, and there were a lot of university professors who got kicked out for bringing up the idea of God and stuff, and for some reason those people, the atheist types, they're the ones who get to the top of the scientific stuff, ideas, because I think generally, I guess atheists are smarter than the fundamentalist Christians, because it makes more sense to not believe in eternal hellfire and just to believe that your soul just evaporates, than to believe in eternal hellfire. That's completely insane, but it is something interesting to think about. But yeah, I think I've rambled on enough. I did good enough.